What up, Street Talks? There, Kim, or the Thought. This one is about you are king. So on the internet they're like, oh, content is king, this is clean, that is king, blah blah. I'm like, yo, you are king. So what do I mean by that? Let me explain. So a lot of interesting thoughts to unravel. So the first one is this. Why do we quantify it ourselves? Why do we metricate ourselves? Why do we put our self-worth in numbers, social media followers, the commas and zeros in our bank account, blah, blah. Why is it that we do this? Now, my thought is we have essentially in today's society, we've been hijacked by the nerds, and society is becoming so uber technological that it's just making everything a little bit hyper. Now, I do think that it is human nature to weigh ourselves against others. The scale is certainly a good thing. In terms of trade, how much gold to get for this, how many pounds of this. And so certainly counting is kind of like a measuring of bigness or greatness or goodness. And so, typically, trade and finance and capitalism, consumerism wouldn't work without units of numbers. However, the issue is that when we, certainly I like the US dollar, I like cryptocurrency, I like Bitcoin, I like Digibyte, DGB, I personally own it. And for me, finance is always so interesting because what really money is it's a tool of social trust and communication and also exchange for services. But ultimately it comes down to social trust. Now the big benefit of having and owning money is that you give people money in the trust that you get something. And so money and capitalism, consumerism, blah blah, I think typically makes for a more tolerant, open-minded, prosperous society where everyone's like quote unquote happier. So certainly there's lots of bad things about capitalism, consumerism, stuff like that, but at the end of the day I think it's probably the least bad system we got around today. Now what I think is, in terms of just like creating more robust ideals for ourselves and society, we should strive to unmetricate ourselves, demetricate ourselves, and we should strive to become the most epic individuals we can based on our own personal measures of ourselves. So what I mean by that is you should not allow numbers to rule your life. I made an acronym, it's called DREAM, D-R-E-A-M. Data rules everything around me, and I actually don't like data. I don't really like numbers. I get too emotional when it comes to numbers, and I want to make myself the king in the sense that I determined this because I said so. And people are like, oh, but do you have the data to back it up? And I'm like, bro, I don't need the data to back it up because, it's like, imagine Picasso. Could you rate the worth of a Picasso? If Picasso was alive today and he had an Instagram, he probably would not get lots of likes for his masterpieces and art. Same thing with Leonardo da Vinci. He probably would only have like 100 followers tops. So I think in some ways social media has actually really hurt art's production and what people are capable of, because we're so stuck in the trenches of thinking like, oh, this is good, that's not good. Why? Because the numbers. Now, I don't really think anything or anyone is to blame. It's, if I think this purely from maybe like a sociological, technological angle, it's just kind of the effects of having technology. I mean, human technology changes us and we change technology. It's kind of like this yin-yang circle. And certainly at the end of the day, I think humanity would be all right. I mean, there's a lot of doom and glooms people, and like low-key all the people who want to go to Mars and stuff like that, I think it's just because they don't like humans and humanity and they don't like Earth. I personally would never go to Mars. Why? Because I like meat, and I'm sure it'll be hard to grow meat on Mars or in a spaceship. I'm not personally interested in eating sea kelp for the rest of my life, and I'm much more optimistic. I think at worst maybe the world will become very dirty and polluted, kind of how it is like in a lot of like, you know, developing countries, whatever. But yeah, I think humanity will be all right. But so the more pragmatic thing I'm interested in is how social media hurts our self-esteem. And self-esteem, you think about esteem. Esteem means estimate. So what is our self-estimate of ourselves? What is our own perceived worth of ourselves? And society is kind of structured in a way that you could only measure your own worth via, you know, how much money you make or what your position is. And certainly there is something to say that, you know, humans are naturally hierarchical, like we like hierarchy. And I think that's just human nature, and I think that's okay. However, the issue is when other people, let's say like Facebook, Google, YouTube's, whatever's, I call it Facebook Gram because, you know, Facebook owns Instagram, or Google too because Google also owns YouTube. And even if you think about the algorithm of Google or YouTube, it's very simple. There's always going to be a top result, and if you're not number one, you're not going to be remembered. So it does seem that in order for you to become the most epic whatever, you must actually be number one. If you're not number one, say toodaloo to your wealth or your influence, whatever it may be. So if you think that you are king and you could determine your own values and stuff like that, then what that means is don't let numbers quantify your worth, right? Like, you know, guys are always trying to weigh themselves, girls are always trying to weigh themselves, and I'm like, yo, you guys are getting it wrong when you're counting calories, counting macros. And if you still believe in calories, you're kind of misguided. Even macros is kind of the more like, you know, woke way of talking about calories. It all doesn't exist. I mean, better to measure how many pounds of meat you eat a day, but even that's not good, because, you know, you're stepping on the scale every single time. And then this is the hilarious thing about weight. Weight is a very bad measure to quantify your bodily composition, because all you gotta do is, yo, just look in the mirror and say like, do I like it what I look like? If you don't like, you have more adipose tissue, like aka fat, then just start doing more intermittent fasting, cut all the sugars and carbs and alcohol, blah blah. If you want more muscle mass, lift heavier weights and eat more meat. It's actually very simple. So what I mean to say is, you know, it's funny with girls, right? Girls typically, I can't always say, or even guys, right? Everybody. Like, the goal is to increase skeletal muscle mass and decrease adipose tissue, body fat. Is not to weigh more or less. That's just kind of silly. And at least a good thing about, you know, don't matter you're a guy, girl, or whatever you decide to call yourself. All human beings, I mean, I can't always say always, but typically look better with more muscle mass and less body fat. And it's actually interesting because I've been working out more. I could actually see my face looking much more masculine, I think, in a good way. I look at my older photos when I was fatter. I had more body fat. I just kind of look softer, and actually I think my metabolism wasn't as good. But anyways, so if you're always weighing yourself, it's so bad because, you know, you see the number go up, you feel good, you might feel bad. Like with girls typically, I mean, I'm just speaking typically, you know, women are always trying to lose weight. What they really mean to say is lose fat, but, you know, oh, fat and fat shaming. So it kind of tends to be an unproductive conversation. But it does actually seem like the real goal is for us to lose fat. So let's say you're on the scale and trying to lose fat, and you see the number either go up or stay the same and not go down, you're gonna feel really sad and depressed about it. Or if you're a guy who's trying to get super swole, you want to see the number go up, but then also it's not a good measure, because what if your body fat number is going up and you're actually weighing more? But the goal is, once again, you want more muscular skeletal muscle mass and less adipose tissue, fat tissue. So measuring yourself in terms of the weight is actually a very bad one.